people who generally think that government bodies are kind of lame and ossified and whatever, but mostly regulate in the right interests. You can largely trust authorities. Universities mostly say true stuff. Whatever things, those people generally trust the authorities. Also, generally have a frame that things are mostly getting better in the world right now. A lot less people have that frame, but in general, that frame. And generally, not always, those people did better in childhood, like at school, in sports. Oftentimes their parents were either more successful or they did better relative to them. And so they had this experience that the system actually works for me and that the authorities are actually trustworthy. And I have a good relationship with them. And that creates a kind of intuitive felt sense. So it's a kind of like the symbol grounding felt sense, where then even if they're in another environment where that's not true, and it was true in the little microenvironment of their childhood, that's still the felt sense. And then they sometimes will keep that forever, or they have to be disabused of it somewhat painfully at some point. Now, other people who have the general sense that most authorities are probably corrupt and probably abusing power, and that most institutions can't be trusted, and that people with less power can be more trusted, and that there is usually some process of corruption that is required for climbing power ladders. Those people generally weren't very successful at climbing the ladders early, and oftentimes had authorities around that abused power or that were like negative experience with them, whether it was parents or school or church or whatever it was. Not always, but I'm giving an example of a kind of bias that can occur, which is a towards or against authority bias, a kind of result that can happen, more likely to believe in conspiracies that the authorities are bad, or more likely to reject that the authorities are bad, and a kind of developmental environment that could give rise to it. There's other developmental environments that could give rise to it, and there's other biases involved in conspiracy, but just one example of a developmental pathway.